This conference will now be recorded.
Lovely. Thank you very much for the introduction there, Liz. It's certainly a pleasure to come back and help Brighton University graduates specifically because I was one once, graduating in business studies in 1995, and we have since employed many University of Brighton graduates to work at Graduate Recruitment Bureau. So I'm delighted to be here today to share some of our insights about how you can graduate in a pandemic. This is the second webinar I've been involved in at Brighton Uni. The first one was about using recruitment agencies. So we've got a huge back catalogue if you ever need to look back at some of these webinars. They're all being recorded. There will be the opportunity to ask questions at the end using the comments box. I'll be keeping an eye on that throughout. And I'll try and keep this to about 20 minutes or so, give you the opportunity to ask any questions at the end. So it looks like you've got a very busy schedule as part of Brighton Works week. So if you are a graduate, there's so many resources there for you provided by the Career Service. So strongly advise you to get involved, use as much of the information as you can as possible to give you the best chance of entering the jobs market right now. Okay, let's start. So my name's Dan Hawes from the Graduate Recruitment Bureau, or GRB. We are the go-to platform for students, graduates and recruiters all over the UK. We were established in 1997, so 2 years after graduating from Brighton, myself and a colleague, another business graduate called Chris, set up the business from a lounge of a flat, so very easy to get the business going. But we decided to do this because we found so many of our friends were struggling to find work, and it seemed a real shame. So we started to do some research and identified this niche, and we've been doing that for 23 years. But we've grown ourselves by hiring other graduates. We're on around 40 staff at the moment, and we've worked with over 1,800 clients across all sectors, companies you will have heard of like the Post Office, IBM, Unilever and Ocado, all having graduate schemes and programs. They need our service to find high caliber graduates, but also several fast growing SMEs. So these are companies that aren't quite in the Premier League yet, but they need high caliber graduates and they really struggle to get noticed. So we help those organizations as well. And they've recruited thousands of graduates from us, over 8,000 in fact. So I'm extremely delighted to getting involved with helping graduates launch their career. And we've got so much experience of doing this. We've been through downturns before. We've seen 9/11, the financial crisis in 2008, and various other parts of the cycle over those years. So I'd like to share some of the insights that we've learned that can help graduates enter the jobs market right now. So first of all, let's start with some of the headlines. Now, I'm going to start with some of the kind of negative news, I guess, but I will revert to some of the positive news, of which there are far more headlines and information I'm going to share with you. But you know, this is what we're seeing on a day-to-day basis over the last 3 months. So there's articles here in the FT about what are the job prospects for the class of 2020. Particularly 18 to 24-year-olds have been hit unfairly because the economy's slowed down. So, you know, how has that affected their future? The Guardian reported on graduate jobs being slashed in 2020. And also the whole university experience has been flipped on its head with students having lectures done online more so than ever before. So huge change in our market. And these are just some of the headlines we've seen over the last 3 months. So the situation we're in, it's a pandemic. So it's killed over 1 million people. This has put the brakes on social mobility. They're about to enter another lockdown, as you're all aware, and this has a knock-on effect for economic growth. Since lockdown, the pandemic has been responsible for over 750,000 jobs that have gone. So by this I mean people have been made redundant. And now the furlough scheme has been extended to the end of November. That's a really positive lifeline for employers to not let people go, but it could be delaying more people being made redundant maybe over Christmas, which will be awful. So that number may go up. For graduates, about 500,000 have just entered the jobs market. So, a huge number. Increasingly, more and more people are going to university. In fact, the figures for this year have increased as well. So there'll be even more graduates entering the job market next summer. But right now, competition's pretty fierce. The pressure's on. There's a lot of debt to pay off. And graduates are looking for work in all places within the UK right now. But it's not just affecting this country. There's a global recession. We can only look to China to see how they're faring, and their economy is slowly getting back to normal, with some of the sectors that were hit badly, like tourism, aviation, and hospitality, almost returning back. And that's good. That's a positive indication. And we can try and second guess what's happening in China as to how Western economies will recover. But looking at various research and surveys over the last few months, economists are predicting any kind of return being from maybe 18 to 36 months to get back to almost where we were in 2019. So there's still that uncertainty and no real idea how long this will last for. So this has affected recruiters. We're seeing many of them deferring start dates or postponing recruitment, but they're not actually stopping recruitment, which is brilliant news, because that did happen in the last recession in 2008. Some recruiters did pull out entirely. We're not seeing that yet. All we're seeing are postponements or deferred start dates, which is frustrating, but the opportunities are still there. Certainly for SMEs, training graduates isn't a top priority for some of them. Survival probably is more important to them, and they have a lot of cash flow issues. And we'll come into some of the sectors that are really struggling right now. So it's a mixed bag, with different companies being affected in different ways. But the graduate labour market has suffered significant damage. Certain sectors like the arts may be the worst affected in the UK. And we all know retail, hospitality, leisure, tourism, anything where there's human interaction, businesses are really taking a hit. So, opportunities within those sectors will obviously be a lot less for graduates. That's what we found with the last downturn in 2008, 2009, where graduates decided to be a lot more risk averse. They'd rather choose a safer career option. So, organizations like the public sector offer more job security, more financial security. So you do see increases in applications to public sector organizations. So, teaching, for instance. There's lots of graduates going into teaching right now. So there's a lot of opportunities there, but the career path is very, very different. So people are joining those for different reasons. And who's to say this may not continue over the coming months. Now, indeed, for some graduates who started their degree 3 years ago, hoping the job market in a particular area would be good, and now finding that maybe they're not so prepared for jobs in that sector because the job opportunities aren't there. But with transferable skills, we're advising graduates in this situation to look beyond those particular sectors and look at other sectors where their skills could be transferred, and there are lots of opportunities for graduates who may not be able to use their degree specifically, but can use the skill set that they've got from their degree in other sectors. And finally, the number of 18 to 24-year-olds claiming universal credit rose from 235,000 in March to 529,400 in September. So, you know, there are some graduates out there right now that are on universal credit, claiming benefits, and, you know, that's not a great position to be, obviously, but the bigger concern is getting into a negative mindset and getting out of that situation. So that's the situation we're in. It's tough. It's competitive for jobs, and there are some sectors that are really struggling because of this pandemic. That's the bad news out of the way. We have been looking at some of the positive news that's been coming out from research, surveys, press articles that we're reading, and here's a small selection of some of the positive news where industry sectors are actually accelerating their growth, and they can't keep up with demand, so they're hiring huge numbers of people. I think I'll start with the survey on the far right here about the 10 fastest growing industries in the UK. This is really useful. So the top industry that's growing right now by 179.4% are open-ended investment companies. So investment firms, financial services will continue. They do continue through downturns and recessions. People and organizations are still investing. So take a look at investment firms, look at that sector and see what opportunities could exist for you. But not just an investment, life insurance is on the up. So that's another sector worth looking into. CRM, customer relationship management system providers. So CRMs are used by marketing firms, and this is for software providers. So technical consultancies, software providers are growing right now, and they're offering opportunities. So take a look at that sector. Healthcare, as we all know, we're working around the clock to find a vaccine, but there's lots of other projects that are going on right now. So there's plenty to look into healthcare, particularly. Online food ordering, so any in-home service, particularly now, as we go into another lockdown, we'll probably see another boom in activity. So that's an obvious sector to look at. Immersive technology, peer-to-peer lending, online book retailers. I could go on, but take a look at that piece of research done by IBIS World. That's a good starting point. But also we can see here IKEA are making more store launches this year, so that's a good sign. We're dealing with a lot of retailers right now, particularly e-commerce providers. So, you know, we work with Amazon, for instance, but there's lots more e-commerce firms out there. That's a sector that's doing very, very well. Another article in the FT about a mini housing boom. So construction, house building, there's a sector, and you don't need to do a construction or a related degree. You could have done a business degree or any other degree, but there may be other opportunities within these firms that may be less obvious to you. So a construction firm will have accountants, they'll have marketing people, operations, finance. So think beyond the actual type of company, but the actual roles within those companies, and you'll probably find opportunities there for you. And the other headline we see here is a hiring demand for MBA graduates. Now, we don't specifically help companies find MBA graduates, but there's a trickle-down effect. And this article tells us that recruiters really value the skill sets that graduates bring for a whole variety of reasons. You know, not just for their succession planning and obvious things like that, but also specific skill sets, fresh thinking, people they can mold and train. And ultimately, graduates are cheaper hires than people with experience. So this is just a small example of some of the headlines we're seeing in the press that are very encouraging for graduates that I hope you'll do some more research of your own. So here's some other bits of information we've picked up. Now, we're part of various professional associations. So the big one for us is the Institute of Student Employers. There's about 700 members. They're all big name graduate recruiters. They do lots of surveys, research, polls. So we pay close attention to the results of what the ISE publish. So certainly have a look at their website. Also the REC, which stands for the Recruitment Employers Confederation. That's another professional association, thousands of members there, again, producing a lot of research, useful insights that are really helping us as an organisation steer through the pandemic and find sectors that are recruiting graduates and go after them. So here's a summary of some of the findings we've noticed from the REC and the ISE. So the level of vacancies is running at just over 50% of normal rates, which isn't brilliant, but it is climbing very, very slowly. So that's good. We're not going backwards. So we are going forwards, but it is very gradual. Certain sectors have been less affected by the pandemic. So health, obviously, social care, IT, and finance are sectors that are carrying on recruiting huge numbers of people, and many of them need graduates. So there's 4 sectors, again, definitely worth exploring a little bit more. Also, many employers are at least discussing recruiting in Q3 and Q4 if conditions permit, if they've missed their normal recruitment rounds earlier in the year. So, you know, big name recruiters, they'll start in the autumn, they'll go through the process, interviewing and assessing people in the new year, and make job offers around Easter time, hoping those graduates will start in September. So this pandemic has, as I said before, either postponed this process and delayed start dates. So companies who have maybe sat on the fence until now seem to at least be discussing moving forward. They can't stay like this forever. So companies are starting to think, let's just get on with it because we're going to miss out on some really good graduates. So keep an eye on these employers. You may see more of these job alerts coming through on your inbox. A poll of business leaders by Management Today. Now that's a popular magazine, and Hayes is a huge high street recruitment agency. They did a poll and found 55% of managers, business leaders, would now be more likely to consider hiring an employee who was not within commuting distance to the office. Now this is really good news, because the whole remote working thing means that employers now don't worry too much that they need to hire someone within an hour or so's commuting distance. They can open it up to the whole of the UK. So if you're a graduate in Brighton and you want to work in Edinburgh, there may be the opportunity to do the job from home and maybe going to the office once or twice a month. So that's an extreme example, but it does mean this does open up the job market a little bit more as a result of the pandemic, which is really encouraging. The number of job adverts increased from 55% to 59%, okay? So a 4% increase, not massive, but all categories were climbing. And this was a survey amongst all the job boards, so Monster, Reed, Gumtree, lots of different job boards out there, all noticing adverts going up in the right direction. So that's very encouraging. And interestingly, this year could possibly have the record number of new companies registered with Companies House. Now, not all these companies will go the distance, but they're starting out. People are setting up new businesses. I mean, what does that tell you? That shows that they're confident and that they've got a business that is viable, and they're going to need extra people to help them grow. And where they're going to look? They're going to look for people that are affordable at this stage, people that they can train, that they can grow, and hopefully lead the company forward with fresh ideas and graduates are a fantastic source with the skill sets that they bring. So we work with lots of startups, and I was quite surprised to see that this year could be a record year for new companies being set up. So you can actually go in Companies House and have a look, do searches on these companies that are setting up. I think you can do it by sector. So that's a very interesting piece of news. And that came out just last week. And finally, there's another piece of research here by the British Chamber of Commerce. So they represent thousands of companies again, and they did a survey that showed 41% of firms expected their turnover to increase. So that's very encouraging. So they're seeing growth in their particular sector. Chances are it'll be in IT or finance or some of these other sectors I mentioned before, where they're plowing ahead, where the pandemic has actually accelerated their growth. So again, that's very encouraging. So again, this is just a small selection of some of the headlines that we're seeing, some of the research and surveys that I think are very encouraging for graduates that you may not be aware of. So definitely take some positive encouragement from this particular slide. Now, the graduate recruitment industry. Now we've seen, we've seen downturns before. Let me just get that slide back up. In 2008 and 9. Okay, you can see this bar in the middle. So the actual number of vacancies in the graduate recruitment industry dropped by 25% in the last recession, okay? And then it still was in the negative in 2009 and 10, crept up a little bit in 2010-11, dipped again slightly in 2011 and 12. So if you see the pattern here from the last downturn and you apply it to right now, we can get a kind of indication about how long this might last for, okay? So that is suggesting there were two big negative years for graduate recruitment, one positive and then two more negative. So we don't know exactly how this is going to affect it, but a lot of the research from economists are showing it's going to be very, very slow across the board. But for some sectors, it's going to increase a lot more quickly. So some people are talking about a K-shaped recovery. So some sectors going up, other sectors staying on a downward curve. So it'd be very interesting. So historically, we can see here in the graduate recruitment industry just how this is potentially going to pan out for the next few years. So the ISE and AGCAS, which is the Association of Graduate Careers Advisory Service, so your career service will be members of AGCAS, they both did some research back in May, and they showed that only 12% of members of ISE said they'll be recruiting less graduates in 2020 and 15% in 2021. So that's actually not too bad. So that says to me 78% of members will be recruiting the same or more graduates in 2020. So that's actually better than the last downturn. So that's very encouraging. And I did say that last time in 2008-9, recruiters did actually stop. They did stop, particularly obviously in the finance industry, but there was a huge knock-on effect. But this time it's different, and that's very encouraging. If we flip that statistic on its head, 78% of graduate recruiters will be recruiting the same or more in 2020. So that's encouraging. What has been hit worse are internships, apprenticeships and placements. Huge numbers of recruiters have just put those on hold, and some have actually stopped them. So that's where the pain has been for a lot of students, particularly who were hoping to do a placement, or graduates hoping to do an internship. Those opportunities have been eroded, unfortunately. Now, why are graduate recruiters behaving the way they are? Well, 39%, according to this research, cited uncertainty, which is totally understandable. given the way that the government is trying to navigate its way through this at the moment. They're struggling, so companies are really finding it hard to make plans because it is so uncertain right now. They can only go week by week. Just as members of the public are finding it hard to plan anything, it's really hard for companies to decide where to invest and weigh up the risk. So 39% are saying that they're just uncertain about how the future is going to pan out. 31% of employers anticipate delaying their start dates for new hires. We've talked about that before. The reduction in hiring is worse for SMEs. We've mentioned that also. The actual activity on campus has reduced. 69% cancel their visits to universities, running skill sessions, things like that. And 72% have actually cancelled attending career fairs. That's a real shame. We would normally be going to loads of career fairs right now, but we've had to cancel those because of this situation. So recruiters have responded. Many were interviewing and assessing graduates online beforehand, but now 71% have moved their interviews online, which is good. It means they can carry on interviewing, assessing, and even onboarding and training graduates remotely, which we thought would be a huge factor in halting a lot of graduate recruiters' plans, is that they couldn't train people face to face. How would they do it? Well, they've found a way with technology to onboard and train graduates. So the whole process from start to finish for 71% of organizations means they can keep moving forward, which is great news. 92% have moved to home working. If they weren't before and they're on the fence, they had no choice. So many people now are able to work at home and stay productive, which is really, really good. 40% of firms haven't finalized their hiring plans for 2020 yet, so that's quite a large number that could release their hiring plans anytime soon. So that's very, very encouraging also. And here I've got some research about those sectors that were really hit, according to the ISE. So the built environment, energy, engineering and industry have been hit considerably, whereas finance, retail, FMCG, charity and the public sector I mentioned before haven't seen too much of a change. Across all sectors, 3% is the average, which is quite encouraging, and that was from a piece of research done in the summer. So that just gives you a flavour of some of the sectors, according to the ISE, that have been hit considerably. Now, we've looked at the situation, some of the negative impacts of the pandemic. We've focused on some of the positive impacts of the pandemic, and also how it's affected the graduate recruitment industry. Now, what can you do to make steps forward? So I've got some advice I'd like to share with you about how you can make some positive steps in a pandemic. So the first thing is, don't lose sight of your career goals. You've spent 3 or 4 years at university focusing on a particular subject. It's completely understandable you want to make the most of that and start your career. It may mean you have to take a few steps before you land the dream job because of the situation, but keep focusing on why you took that degree in the first place. Do not lose sight of your career goals. Obviously, avoid depressed sectors like aviation, tourism, leisure, hospitality. Some of these sectors I mentioned, the built environment, energy, engineering, have all been hit. Chances are they won't have opportunities. So spend your time on sectors that have seen a surge in activity. So I've already gone into detail about many of these sectors that are doing very, very well right now, and they'll be looking for graduates. Here's some more: online retail, so e-commerce I've mentioned, healthcare, fintech, financial technology, so companies that provide software solutions for the financial industry are doing very well. Cybersecurity, with lots more people using company laptops at home, organizations have had to look at the security of people using their own Wi-Fi platforms. So cybersecurity is very, very important. Analytics is another huge sector we could talk about in terms of data science, forecasting, that kind of thing. Very, very big in FMCG. And also technical consultancies. And there are hundreds of companies that are growing right now as a result of this pandemic. They may be harder to find, but it's worth doing the homework to find organizations within these sectors. Keep building your CV. Right now, you'll have left university, obviously, with a degree, but other skills that are useful to employers right now. So anything you did while you're at university, with societies, volunteering, part-time work, maybe you had a sideline selling things on eBay or Etsy. Anything like that is really important. So think hard about building your CV. I mean, it is a living document, so you should always be adding and taking things from your CV. So spend a lot of time making sure right now that your CV is the best version of you, so you can stand out when you eventually apply for a graduate job. Use your time productively. I'm sure you have, because inevitably employers will ask you what you did in the lockdown, and you need to have a very good answer. So, we've seen lots of graduates taking online courses, which is great. I know Harvard University do them, the Open University. So that shows that you're moving forward by doing these courses. But there may be also other useful things you can do, like practicing virtual interviews. I said before, 71% of recruiters are now doing interviews online. So they're daunting at the best of time, but having to do it in front of a laptop requires a slightly different approach. And the best thing to do is practice. So use this time to prepare for the graduate recruitment interviews or assessments, things like that, so it doesn't come as a surprise when you eventually have to do them. Now, getting noticed is really important. As I said, there's 500,000 graduates about to enter the jobs market right now. So look for agencies, specialist ones like GRB that focus on graduates, but also you'll find specialist ones by sector. Approach high street ones by all means. Finding a temporary job is sometimes a good way to get your foot in the door, because you may discover full-time opportunities with certain employers. LinkedIn, lots of employers use LinkedIn to advertise for graduates. You need to get on there. Obviously, combing job boards and signing up for job alerts, using your career service, that kind of thing. These are all the obvious things to get noticed, but one very successful strategy we've seen work time and time again is sending out speculative letters. So you may zone in on, say, 3 or 4 companies you'd really like to work for, let's say. You go on their website, there's no jobs page maybe, or they're not advertising. Do not think that they haven't got any opportunities. So many jobs are not actually advertised. So we always encourage graduates to apply to these companies with a very strong covering letter and a CV tailored for that company. But look at the projects that they're working on. Look at the departments that people work in. Try and figure out a way where you could provide your skill set for that organization. Chances are they might say, you know what, we need someone as we're working on a particular project, come in for an interview. We've seen it happen. Straight away, you'll have less competition because no one else will think to do that. And it can be a very clever way, if you're prepared to put the time up front, to get your foot in the door and really get the attention of an employer. So maybe consider sending out a speculative application. I mentioned before, using your time productively. We're getting lots of our clients, one of the first questions they're saying to graduates is, what did you do in the lockdown? They want to see that graduates are resilient, that you haven't dropped a gear, you haven't got into a negative mindset, you've kept the momentum going, you're building your skill set, you're demonstrating you're resilient. Employers love that. So if you haven't already, think of a good answer to that question. The other thing to bear in mind is you do have other options. You don't have to start a job right now. If all this is too much, and you'd rather stay at university, then if you can afford it, many graduates are deciding to stay at university to do postgraduate study. Think long and hard about the kind of master's degree that you'd like to do. Will it put you in a stronger position in a year's time? Think about it because it's another year out of the jobs market. But lots of graduates, usually in recessions, tend to stay at university and wait for things to improve and continue their education. So if you can afford it, certainly consider postgraduate study. Maybe start your own business. I mentioned that this could be a record year for companies being set up. If you had a sideline now, maybe it's the time to get going. Lots of graduates do start up their own business when they leave university, so that might be an option for you. Or if you can, maybe you've got contacts abroad. We've talked about China before, coming out of this before everyone else. We are placing graduates in China right now on teaching assignments. So there could be opportunities in these countries that are starting to come out of lockdown and get back to normal. So you may want to think on a bigger picture where you could work elsewhere. And one final point is, in the last downturn in 2008, 2009, there were so many recruiters who had a shortfall. Okay, we're anticipating and we are seeing that happen right now. So by a shortfall, I mean graduate recruiters will, if they've got a training program, will set out to recruit maybe 50 graduates. Graduates will take more than one job offer. Now, if the employer doesn't have a second pool of talent they can access, if offers aren't taken, they will have a shortfall. So let's say 5 graduates don't take them up on the job offer, and there's a week to go before the training program. They come to organizations like GRB because we can help them recruit 5 graduates to join that training program, and everything can carry on seamlessly. This happens a lot, and graduates think they've missed the boat. But go back to organizations you saw advertising last autumn and see if they've reopened their vacancies, because some of them will have shortfalls. And we've seen lots of graduates kind of get in through the back door, if you like, and actually start their career. And lots of graduates come to the conclusion that they've missed the boat, but that's not always the case. So there are 8 positive steps you can take to help you through this pandemic, this recession, in this very, very challenging time. We're helping graduates all of the time right now, helping them with their CV, applying for jobs. But we've also gone the extra mile and launched a sister website called graduatementor.uk. And this is an idea we've had for several years, but we thought now's the right time. Graduates need that extra bit of help. We're offering free one-to-one video call sessions with any of our 100 mentors. We've just hit 100 mentors. They're from all sorts of sectors, some fantastic experience. They're business professionals, inspiring leaders, ex-university career staff. Some of them are actual professional mentors and coaches. They've all agreed to offer free 1-hour mentoring sessions. So I'd strongly suggest getting onto graduatementor.uk if you'd like to brainstorm any ideas with them. Use the platform. It's there as part of our campaign, #HelpTheCovid-Generation. Okay, I've gone a little over the time. I had a lot to get through there, but if you do have any questions, now's the opportunity to use the comments box. If you would also like to follow up with me, I'll put my email in the comments box as well. You can always email me any questions you may have, and I can get any of the team here at GRB to help you talk about your CV over the phone and offer more advice and guidance, and ultimately give you reassurance right now that although the entering the job market is very, very tough, there are opportunities there if you find them. I hope that's been of use. This has been recorded, so I will be adding this to our YouTube channel as well. If you want to go back through some of the slides, some of the research and surveys, you're more than welcome to check that on our YouTube channel. Thank you very much for your time, and also thanks to Liz for inviting me here as part of the Brighton Works Week schedule of events this week. Thanks everyone for coming along. If you want to email me, drop me an email and I'll speak to you another time. All the very best.